Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 7. I'm on behalf of Nur Isa Hasriani and my friends Andi Nur Intan FAJRIA.M and Anita. We will present our material about English literature, the Romanticism period. The Romanticism period. The Romantic period began roughly around 1798 and lasted until 1837. The political and economic atmosphere at the time heavily influenced this period, with many writers finding inspiration from the French Revolution. There was a lot of social change during this period. Calls for the abolition of slavery became louder during this time, with more writing openly about their objections. After the agricultural revolution, people moved away from the countryside and farmland and into the cities, where the Industrial Revolution provided jobs and technological innovations, something that would spread to the United States in the 19th century. Romanticism was a reaction against the spread of industrialism, as well as a criticism of the aristocratic social and political norms and a call for more attention to nature. Although writers of this time did not think of themselves as romantics, Victorian writers later classified them in this way because of their ability to capture the emotion and tenderness of men. Next, characteristic of Romanticism. The characteristics of Romanticism are: the first, an emphasis on individualism and subjectivity. The second, an emphasis on the beauty and purity of nature. The third, focuses on emotion and feelings. The fourth, belief in the natural goodness of man. The fifth, the belief that imagination is superior to reason. The sixth, preferring the medieval rather than the classical. Next, the start of Romanticism. Romanticism in English literature started in the late 18th century with the poets Robert Burns, William Blake, William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Walter Scott. It continued into the 19th century with the second generation of Romantic poets, most notably Jane Austen, Percy B. Shelley, John Keats, Lord Byron, and Mary Shelley. Number 1. Robert Burns. Robert Burns is considered the pioneer of the Romantic movement. Although his death in 1796 precedes what many consider the start of Romanticism. His lyricism and sincerity mark him as an early Romantic writer. His most notable works are Auld Lang Syne, 1788, and Tam O'Shanter, 1791. Burns inspired many of the writers during the Romantic period. Number 2. William Blake. William Blake was one of the earliest Romantic period writers. Blake believed in spiritual and political freedom and often wrote about these themes in his works. Although some of his poetry was published before the official start to the era, Blake can be seen as one of the founders of this movement. His works, Songs of Innocence, 1789, and Songs of Experience, 1794, are two of his most significant. This collection of poetry are some of the first to romanticize children. And in these works, Blake pits the innocence and imagination of childhood against the harsh corruption of adulthood, especially within the city of London. He was also known for his beautiful drawings, which accompanied each of these poems. Number 3. Poetry by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Scholars say that the Romantic period began with the publishing of lyrical ballads, 1798, by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. This was one of the first collection of poems that strayed from the more formal poetic diction of the neoclassical period. Poets of the period instead used everyday words that the average person could understand. This also aided in expressing human emotion. Wordsworth primarily wrote about nature. He felt it could provide a source of mental cleanliness and spiritual understanding. One of Wordsworth's well-known works is The Solitary Reaper, 1887. This poem praises the beauty of music and shows the outpouring of expression and emotion that Wordsworth felt was necessary in poetry. His greatest piece is the Prelude, 1850, a semi-autobiographical conversation poem that chronicles Wordsworth's entire life. Conversational poetry was the literary genre most commonly used by Wordsworth and Coleridge, with the latter writing a series of 8 poems following the genre structure of conversational verse and examining higher ideas of nature, man, and morality. This poetry is written in blank verse and is extremely personal and intimate in nature, with much of the content based on author's life.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Introduce. My name is Andi Nur Intan FAJRIA.M. Here I will continue the material the Romanticism period that has been delivered by my friend Nur Isa Hasriani. Okay, to save time, I will start the material. Number 4. The novel Walter Scott. During the Romantic period, the novel grew in popularity and became one of the major sources of entertainment for middle-class citizens. Authors began to tailor their writing to appeal to this audience. Sir Walter Scott gained popularity during this time both in Britain and around Europe. He mainly wrote within the genre of historical romance and made this a viable form of fiction for later writers. Scott also focused on his home country of Scotland, often writing about its beauty and romanticism. Scott's first major novel was Waverley 1814, which is set during the Jacobite Rebellion of 1745. The rebellious group sought to restore the Stuart dynasty to Charles Stuart. The hero Edward Waverley is commissioned to the army and sent to Scotland in 1745, where he joins the Jacobite groups even though he knows they will fail and is imprisoned. However, he is ultimately freed. The novel ends with a marriage between Waverley and Baron's daughter, Rose, representing the rational, realistic present of Scotland post-rebellion. While this was his first success, generally the Antiquary 1816, All Mortality 1816, and The Heart of Midlothian 1818 are considered his masterpieces. Next, number 5. Women Have Arrived, Jane Austen. The Romantic period saw more successful women writers, a precursor to their popularity in the Victorian era. The most significant female writing during this period was Jane Austen. Writing toward the end of the strict Romantic period, guidelines and mocked some of the more extravagant plots of previous writers. Instead, Austen chose to highlight the everyday lives of average people, making a turn toward social relevance. Her novels include relatable heroines with adventures that the ordinary reader would likely encounter. They was also able to better depict the lives of women in this way. She understood that women had very little class mobility at the time and used many of her novels as a way to show this. Some of her famous novels include Sense and Sensibility, 1811, Pride and Prejudice, 1813, Mansfield Park, 1814, Emma, 1815, and Northanger Abbey, 1817. Number 6. Percy Bysshe Shelley. Percy Bysshe Shelley was seen as a radical thinker for his religious mysticism, and largely ostracized by his contemporaries for his political and social views. One of his most famous works is Adonis, 1820. This was a pastoral elegy, a poem combining death and rural life, written for John Keats, and the poem mourns the death of Keats on his contribution to poetry. Another of his well-known works was Ode to the West Wind, 1819, where he discusses the force and power of the whirlwind and shows the romantic writer's tendency to connect nature with art.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Introduce my name Anita. Here I will continue the material, the Romanticism period, that has been delivered by my friends Andi Nur Intan FAJRIA.M. To save time, I will start the material number 7. Number 7. John Keats. Succeeding Blake, Coleridge, and Wordsworth was a new generation of poets, each following the pattern of Romanticism of those before them. John Keats is still one of the most popular of these poets, which his work continually read and analyzed today. Keats aimed to express extreme emotion in his poetry using natural imagery to do this. He is well known for his thus lyrical stanzas that are typically written in praise of or in dedication to something or someone that he writer admires. This has allowed the genre of lyrical poetry and focus on intense emotion using personal narrative. Among these acts and to a Nightingale, 1819, and Add on Aggression Arm, 1819, are most famous. Keats was preoccupied with death and aging throughout his life, which is shown in each of these two acts. And to a Nightingale discusses the temporary status of life and beauty, but in Add on Grecian Arm, he explores the artistic permanence of the images on the arm. Next, number 8, Lord Byron. Lord Byron differed from the writing style of Keats and Shelley. He was heavily influenced by the satire and wit from the previous period and infused this in his poetry. His satire, Don Juan, 1819, 1824, is told in 17 cantos divisions of long poems and is based on the traditional legend of Don Juan. Byron changes the original telling of the story and instead of creating a womanizing character, he makes Don Juan someone easily seduced by women. The cantos follow his character's journey as he travels throughout Europe, meeting several women and continually trying to escape from trouble. Byron's other notable work is Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, 1812-1816, another lengthy narrative poem. This poem was largely biographical and discussed many of Byron's personal troubles. It described the reflection of a young man who is seeking new beginnings in foreign countries after experiencing because it introduced the Byronic hero typically and handsome and intelligent man with a tendency to be moody, cynical, and rebellious against social norms. Next, number 9, Gothic fiction, Mary Shelley. During the second half of the 18th century, Gothic fiction began to increase in popularity in Great Britain. This came from a look back to medieval times, often this genre would combine supernatural and mysterious elements with the castles and dungeons of the past. The Gothic novel combines the intense emotions of terror, against fear, and even love. Coleridge and Byron both contributed works to this canon, but John William Polidori's The Vampire 1819 and Mary Shelley Frankenstein 1818 stand out as two of the genre's most enduring pieces. Shelley combines elements of love and the supernatural in her Gothic novel.